All right, welcome to Christina Speaks. I'm excited today. I have Kathryn Dickel, and we're going to be talking about writing, and we're going to be talking about Pollinate Women's Weekend. And so thank you, Kathryn, for coming on and spending some time with us today.
I'm excited. I love talking to you.
Same, so we could be here a while. So
I know. Gosh, Jesus, whenever we go to lunch, it's like 4-hour lunches.
We've got a long friendship, over 10 years.
We do, yes.
And
it's very special to me.
Projects and supporting each other, so it's good.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yeah,
fun new project.
Yes, thank you for being on Christina Speaks. I guess we'll jump in with Pollinate because that's the latest thing that we're working on together. So Why don't you tell us how Pollinate came to be?
Well, it really started probably back when I was in college. I always wanted to do a women's retreat. And Claire Charlot, who is on our planning team, who I went to college with, reminded me several months ago. She said, you've been wanting to do this for a really long time. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, I have. This has been percolating for quite a long time. So I had a women's spirituality group when I was in college. And I've just always, I'm a religion major, and I've always just gravitated towards spiritual things in my life. Seeking. And so last year I took my boys, Miles and Wesley, up to the Y camp for a mommy and me weekend, just to kind of get out of the city, get into nature, kind of reconnect time. And the director up there, his name is Alex, him and I were talking, and I just kind of said, half jokingly, I'm like, when are you going to do the mommies weekend? Or just moms. And he said, he's like, I'd really love to do a women's weekend up here, but I'm a dude and I don't really know how to do that. And I'm like, it was like one of those magical moments, right? Where you just, that the universe opens up for your dreams, right? And I said, well, I could do it. And he's like, you could? He's like, do you want to? And I'm like, yes, I do. And so that was really how it got started, and we met a week later for coffee, and we kind of just, hashed out a model, and we were kind of off to the races from there. So it was really exciting, and still I can hardly believe that it's happening in some ways, because it has been a dream of mine for so long. So to actually see it come to life it's overwhelming in a good way.
Well, and 85 women believe in your dream.
Actually, we're up to 90 now.
90 women.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, for the first time out the gate, but it is really cool. And I don't know of anything else that's doing that. You've got the entire Y camp, which is really cool for anyone who has seen like the original Parent Trap with the Kaylee Mills playing two characters.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. Like right. That camp that they went to, which I saw that growing up in Chicago. I was like, I knew there was no way I would ever go to camp like that. But then when you invited me up to take a look, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my Parent Trap moment. Like I can go to camp like
yeah, that camp just turned 100 years old this year. So and it is all those things, isn't it? Yeah.
So, and just to know that it'll be women getting in touch with nature and supporting each other, having circle time together to discuss whatever's on our hearts, and getting away from the everyday, getting in touch with each other, and just kind of, getting that support, that nurturing kind of spirit that comes when women all come together.
Yeah. And I think, I know certainly for my life is always seems like it's going at warp speed, and you too. And, I think that it's going to be a unique experience in a lot of ways, but probably the primary way that it's going to be a unique experience is that it's really going to be dedicated time for women to focus on themselves. And we've tried to build in as many modalities or channels of that focus as we can. For people who like to be alone or are maybe a little bit more introverted and appreciate silence, there's a ton of great opportunities and places to be on camp that'll do that for you. If you're somebody who likes to be really active and hiking and zip lining and rock climbing, there's all of that going on. If you're somebody who likes to create with craft and hands, we have a beautiful art house that people can just kind of go and dive into that. So there's just a lot of different things that people can, women can tap into, just to feed themselves, feed their soul, right? And then of course, yes, all the other women that are going to be there doing the same thing. So I think the energy, just the energy of, kind of soul nourishment is going to be really beautiful and exciting.
I'm excited for the activities, like you mentioned, the hiking and the zip lining, but then there's also going to be ritual. There's going to be, things that will start the day, and then ways to end the day where we just kind of all connect again. I mean, dance parties and what was it, a fire walk?
Right. So the first night, everybody at we're not asking women to participate in anything except for a few things. So we really want to give women as much time to choose what they want to do. But we are asking all the women to participate in 3 things during the weekend. One of those is circles, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing is our evening meal. And then the third thing is called evening gathering. And that's from like 7 to 10 in the evenings. The first night we're going to have a dance party. DJ M Church is coming up to spin some tunes, and I love to dance, and I just don't feel like I get enough time to do that, or opportunities around Des Moines to do that. And so I am really looking forward to moving my body, and I feel like dance really opens up inhibitions, and it feels like it's going to be a really good thing to have for the first night, where we're all just kind of getting a little crazy. And then Friday night we have a ritual hike, which is called the Trail of 5 Fires. Mm-hmm. And that will be a progressive hike through a really beautiful prairie area that's part of the campgrounds there. And there's 5 different fire gathering spots within that trail. Mm-hmm. And we will have women who will be doing some witness talks at each one of those fires. And we'll culminate it with the last fire, which I'm leading the last fire. So that'll be an opportunity for all of us to kind of dig deep, really, and hold space for each other. And then Saturday night, we'll be having a concert. So music has always been a huge part of my life. So we decided to have a concert, and that'll be featuring Jody Stanfield and Abby Sawyer and Denisha Jacopito. And I'm working on one other woman that I'm really hoping will come. So probably it'll be like a songwriter in the round type of situation for that concert. So I think all of those things will provide different opportunities for women to connect with their spirit.
Awesome. And on top of that, there's a lot of spaces in there where we can just be.
Yes.
There's quiet time, which is something that I know most women don't allow ourselves. We don't take those pockets of time. I think we feel like we have to always be doing something, especially something for somebody else. So
yeah, we actually have on the schedule, it's called resting hour. And it's actually a real time that, we encourage women to go rest. And this is, we took a lot of things off the schedule modeled from Y Camp and Family Camp, which I also go to with my boys every summer. And they have a resting hour during their camps. And I remember the first time I went to Family Camp and I saw it on the schedule, I'm like, who needs a resting hour, right? but it was my favorite part of the day. I just literally collapsed, and it was almost like somebody gave me permission to do that, to just like lean into my exhaustion. And also when you're at camp, the camp is fairly large, and you're doing a lot of physical activity, probably more than you do on it is more than you do on a daily basis, because you're walking everywhere you go, and there's all the activities that you can take part in as well. So your body needs that recoup time. And so, yeah, it is really kind of a special opportunity. One of my favorite things on camp is the hammock farm. I call it the hammock farm. And it's just a place at camp right by the river that has I think there's probably like 15 hammocks that are set up in this kind of grouping way. And I spend, when I'm up for family camp for the week, I spend a lot of time in the hammock.
That's where I plan to spend a lot of time. So I'm really hoping that the weather is conducive to just sitting out there and
me too.
Just listening to the creek, the birds, the wind, whatever, or nothing. I'm looking forward to some quiet time, because that's something I don't get a lot of.
Yeah, and there's a lot of great, really easy, accessible trails that people can kind of go off into if they want to go spend some time in the woods. There's also some challenging trails too. So if people want to kind of challenge themselves that way, they can. There's also really great indoor spaces, lots of fireplaces in different buildings. There's campfires all over the campgrounds. So,
and they'll all be lit and going. And
yep. Yeah, we're going to really use fire in a way that's going to be magical.
Burn down that place.
We're going to burn it, or burning it down. And then, there's an amazing deck that overlooks the river. I spent a lot of time up there when I love to knit there. So yeah, there is a lot of opportunities, a lot of spaces for people to just let it all go and relax. Yeah. I can't wait.
Me too. I'm picturing just comfy clothes, hair up and wild, and just knitting and just sitting quiet, having good conversation, hiking, the zip lining, all of it. I'm like, gosh, are we going to be there long enough to get to do all of that?
Well, it was funny because I don't know if you remember back when we started planning, which was earlier. It was in February, I think, is the first planning meeting we had, or maybe it was January. I don't know. It's been so long ago, but we talked about how long the weekend was going to be, and we decided to start it on Thursday at 3:00 in the afternoon. And I would have to say, of all the questions and kind of resistance that I have heard, it's from that. It's women are having a hard time blocking that much time away from their jobs and their families and whatnot to spend for them, spend on themselves. So I think that's really interesting, and I think that that's something as women that we need to address, and I think that's something as a culture we need to address. That respite care is important, and recharging time is really important, and it's important for every human being. But I think that's one of the statements we have made very strongly with this weekend is you need this. You need it. I don't know a woman in my life that does not need this in the worst way. And I know a lot of women that can't come to the weekend because they have lots going on, and a lot of things to take care of. And so we're hoping that I'm hoping that as the event takes hold and grows over the years, that is something that we can start embedding in women's minds, is that, you deserve this. This is something that everybody should make space for you, your family, your husband or your partner or your children or even your job, should make space for you to recharge.
Yeah, it's basically a long weekend once a year where you don't have to plan anything. I mean, as a participant, they just have to show up and they get to pick what they want to do. There's a couple things that they can pick ahead of time, like if they want to get a massage, if they want to do some breath work, and some other practitioners that'll be there. But for the most part, they really don't have to think about it. Everything is laid out, and then they can just spend that time how they want. If they want to just do all quiet time and then just do the meals and the evening activities, they can. Like, if they don't have to hike, they don't have to really do anything. And that's like the beauty of it. Everything's been planned, and people are welcome to do that or not, but it's there at their fingertips.
That's right. And I'm glad that you mentioned the practitioners, because our healers that we have coming up, I think this is something that is unique for an event like this, in a sense that we have healers, women healers, from a lot of different spaces, a lot of different modalities that are coming up to camp for the weekend and providing their services. It is an additional cost, so those women can make that work. But I'm so excited about the offerings that we have. We have massage, we have Reiki, we have crystal sound healing, we have henna. We have, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but I think it's Maori, mm-hmm. A Maori practitioner, Dina Fife, is coming to do that. And we also have unlimited breath, which is a great healing modality that I've taken advantage of. That will be offered as a group session. So there's just, that's another thing, is like the exploration opportunities for women at this weekend are really amazing. If you want to, discover something about yourself, discover something new, discover a new way to nurture yourself, there's going to be a lot of things to experiment with this weekend.
And it's a comfortable space. I mean, each of the cabins, they have beds, they have bathrooms. Some of them even have like a little, I don't know, like a communal area. So if you don't just want to like sit on your bed and talk, you have a little space. I mean, they're really nice, a nice space. They have heat and air conditioning. So it's not like we're asking women, oh, no, we're going to sleep in a tent in October. Like, nope, it's very nice accommodation.
Yeah, it really is. Like, the camp is like full service that way. I think all the cabins will have people and will have their own bathrooms and showers in them, which is really great. There's 3 brand new cabins available this year that were just built over the summer. I was in those this summer, and they're really beautiful. And then, there's all of the like dining facilities and common areas like Chase Lodge and Pioneer Lodge, and those things are all really great spaces as well. And we'll also have the cafe open at Chase Lodge, which I'm kind of getting excited about because we put it on the Facebook group. And I'm starting to see all the things that people are going to make roll in, right? And so it's getting pretty exciting. So it's a free will cafe that all the women that are attending, not all the women will participate, but a lot of women are just going to bring their favorite food, right? Their favorite snacks and to share and things like that. So that's kind of exciting as well. So yeah, I mean, I really, again, like when I think about it, I can't believe it's really happening. And I also want to mention Jamie Milne is doing a really interesting project called The Creative Confessional, and she's a photographer, an amazing photographer, and she's bringing this project up to Pollinate. I'm not really sure what it is going to be. Like, people have asked me, and I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I like that. I like that I don't know. But I do know that what it is an exploration of your soul through photography, and through her photography. So that's really exciting. And I'm super excited to have Brandy Case Hobb come and do forest bathing, which I've not done yet, but I've always wanted to do it. I even looked into like getting certified and learning how to do forest bathing. So to have her come up and do 2 days of forest bathing, I think is just really exciting.
Now, what I read the description, but I can't picture what exactly it
I don't
is.
know what exactly it is either. Again, this is like one of the beautiful things about Pollinate, is, when the seed blows off of the dandelion, you don't really know where it's going to go, right? It's just going to go off into the air and land somewhere and make something beautiful. And I feel like that's some of these activities. Like, I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen either, but I know that it's going to be life affirming and it's going to be great, so I'm going to show up with an open heart and just have the experience. Yeah. Next year I'll tell you what it was like. Right? Yeah. Oh, it's this, right? So I mean, there's really going to be nothing like this first year, which I'm really excited for all the women that are going to be there the first year, because it never is anything like the first time, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that I like about the committee. Every time we come together, everybody's excited to like share something else. And even though we're adding more work essentially to what has to be done, everybody's excited. And it's just like, oh, why don't we do this? Oh, this would be cool. Yeah, I'll do this and I'll do that. And why don't, and it's a really good collaboration, a lot of creative ideas, and, people who are just as excited about it as the next person. It's not, I don't feel like anybody's kind of like, I don't really want to do this, or now it feels like it's too big. Like, everyone is just as excited today as they were when it was more of a concept, and now that it's come together, it's awesome.
I've been planning events for nearly 20 years now, and this is the largest planning team I've ever worked with. There's 18 women on the planning team. We have 2 women that are, one is from Las Vegas, or currently residing in Las Vegas, and one is from Montana, currently residing there. So it's multi-state planning team. And I usually do not work with teams that big, but the reason that I chose to build a team like that was I really wanted to try to be as inclusive as possible, and to make sure that we had voices at the table from the get-go, all that creativity, all that perspective, right at the starting line. It wasn't an afterthought later, because I think a lot of events do that. They kind of come with their vision, and then they just try to kind of slap on the inclusion at the end of the day type of thing. And I didn't want to do that, because I think I was feeling like we would lose a great deal if that's the path that we had taken. So I decided to open it up and make it big, make it multidimensional. And one of the things that I've learned from this process, even though it was intimidating for me to kind of think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to manage 18 women, was that it's actually the perfect model for women in an event like this, because, we all have things that come up, and we all get really busy, and all these women are volunteering their time. And what's happened, which is really beautiful and just shows how like amazing women are, is like when a woman has had to step, aside for a while because, something's going on with their kids, or they get really busy at work or whatever, another woman rises to kind of fill in that space for that time. And that's just how it's rolled this entire 9 months, is, lots of great organic support for each other, right? Mm-hmm. So that has been something that's been kind of beautiful and magical, and it hasn't been a challenge for me at all to have, to work with a group of women that large, because it's just, and it's actually because there is so many women, and they're all like kind of ebbing and flowing with each other. I don't really feel the stress that I typically do with like, oh my God, if that person backs out or that person can't do, like when somebody's been like, oh man, I just started, school and I'm like buried in homework and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, it's all right. Somebody, I'll just call somebody else, or somebody else will step in at that meeting and lift you up and lift us up, and that's really how it's been.
Yeah, I get the feeling that once we get to camp and things have to get done, that it'll just be like whoever is there is going to put their creative mind behind it and get it done. And
Yeah.
you know, when we were talking about like the decor and you know, we just said let's just go with organic because I bet it's going to turn out amazing. Just
Yeah.
we're going to get there and we're going to get it done. That's just
I know
what
it's
women do.
I know. I mean, I really I feel the same way. I'm just kind of like, you know, bring whatever you have and we'll see. And Heather, my beautiful partner at Swelu, who has helped facilitate every dream that I had in my professional life. She's just a master space creator, and loves to like do the decor stuff. And there's a couple other women on the team that are like that too. And I'm actually just excited to like kind of build here's the paints or here's the palette, you know, like, yeah, everybody bring their weird Buddha, or like I just bought some, bring the weird Buddha. I just bought some like birch, like kind of like weird birch tree things at Michael's with like lights on them today because they were on super sale. And I'm like, I'm going to buy those for Pollinate and I'm just going to bring them and we'll see like where they get put. So
see what happens.
Exactly. So
very cool. And so Pollinate is coming up October 10th through the 13th, and it will be in Boone, Iowa at the Y Camp. You know, tell them how they can register if they're interested.
Yeah, you can find out all the information, the schedule, the healers, the activities, and registration information at pollinatewomensweekend.com. So I encourage you to go there. Right now, the registration price is $350 for the weekend. But I encourage you to reach out and find a current attendee because they have a special promo code that will get you in at $275. So and that's a great way to make friends or reconnect with friends. I have friends coming from college that I haven't seen since college.
Oh, cool.
Which is so exciting to me. And I have a feeling that over the course of time, this will be a great reunion opportunity for a lot of women that, you know, want to reconnect with women that they haven't seen for a really long time that were important to them. So
yeah, that would be cool. I mean, a way to just like, hey, let's all get together here, but nobody actually has to plan it because it's all planned for you. You just show up with your friends.
Right.
I've been telling folks, you know, this is a really great way to just kind of fill your cup since you're always filling other people's cups and doing for others, like do for yourself. And it's amazing how many people women just find that to be such a weird concept.
I know.
And it just
I feel like
to me how much more we need this.
Yes. And I feel like if we can start a little bit of a revolution like that, let's, you know, do it. And I also think that, I have been somewhat troubled by a lot of the offerings for women around weekends. You know, they're kind of, I call them mom bomb weekends, you know, where there's a focus on alcohol, there's a focus on partying. And I feel like I want to give something to women that is deeper than that, because I think women need something deeper than that.
Sure.
You know, I'm not taking away anything from, you know, those types of weekends for people that really enjoy them and whatever. But I do feel like women need deep nourishment. You know, they don't need escapism. They need deep nourishment. And so I think that this weekend has that. And I am hoping that, you know, we start out with this this great group of women, and we see how things pollinate over the next couple of years.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that's different about this too. Like you were saying, those escapism weekends, a weekend to party or drink or whatever. Like, okay, that's great. You get away, you have your pictures, your memories or whatever. But I feel like here what we're offering is a connection that goes beyond the weekend. The weekend is just the beginning. If you find someone or even a practice that then you can incorporate, if it's, you know, wandering into the art room and reconnecting with a creative part of yourself, if it's just being quiet in nature and remembering how much you used to love being in nature, and, you know, that may inspire you to go back to those things, to that creative part of you, to that quiet part of you, to that, you know, kind of nature it's more than just, okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to party so hard, I'm going to forget everything, and then I'm going to go home with a hangover and look at the pictures and go, wow, that was a blast.
Yeah.
You know?
And there is a time and place for that. But
Yes.
yeah, and I also think there's just going to be a lot of, again, opportunities for women to discover something brand new, you know. And I mean, I guess my ultimate goal would be like the women are going to leave there with that pollination spirit. You know, they're going to go out back into their lives with something substantial, you know, right. to bring either to themselves on a daily basis or to others on a daily basis, you know, that will really happen for them. That's my goal for everyone that comes, regardless of, you know, how they experience that, you know. I mean, it's funny because I had a text message from an attendee who's recruiting. She wants to get a couple people to come with her. And she said, you know, I have a couple introverts and they're really worried about the circles, you know, and you know, I don't know what to tell them. And they don't want to be, they're kind of worried that they're going to be forced to, you know, talk or whatever. And I totally respect that because I have some, you know, big introverts in my life and I love them to death. And what I said to her was that, you know, nobody's going to be forced to do anything they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And for the circles, for example, which are something that we're asking every woman to participate in, if you don't want to talk in one of the circles, you can just hold space for somebody else, you know,
right.
Just simply be there to listen, mm-hmm. which is powerful as well, you know. Right. So the circles are going to be small group gatherings with, depending on how many women we have in total for the weekend, there'll be probably about 10 to 12 women in each one of the circles. It's a 90-minute time for these small groups of women to get together and have deeper, more intimate conversations about things that are important to them. And each circle will determine what topics are important within that circle. And there'll be a facilitator that'll help keep the conversation moving and make sure that it's got some vitality to it. And that, you know, people are being supported in whatever way they choose that they need to be supported, whether that's to be a listener or to be a talker, all of those things. So, but we felt that it was really important to build a special space and time for that. Right. Because a lot of times you can go into a situation like this and it's intimidating. It's even intimidating for me. And I'm an extrovert, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm planning this weekend and this is my dream. But when I think about, you know, stepping into a space where I don't know a lot, there'll be a lot of women I don't know. Right, yeah. Actually, I'm going to know, I will not know more women than I know women at this event, which is super exciting for me. But, you know, as a human being, not the event planner, but as the human being, that's kind of scary. And so we kind of wanted to build a space where it's like, you don't have to manage 85 other women's energies. You get to sit and, you know, ground it with 10 to 12 other women.
Yeah. And I like that it will be sort of random. So you can be in the same cabin with your friends and all plan to come together. But when it comes to circles, you'll get to be with other women. And even if you decide that you have nothing to say, you're just going to listen, but you're still connecting with people. I think to be listened to, like you said, it's just powerful in and of itself, but then also to be able to be in a space where you can share and not worry about, oh, well, that's my friend who came with me and she might not know this about me, or that's someone who's from my community who might say something. Like, nope, this is going to be kind of a random group of women who are there, committed to confidentiality, committed to supporting and being there for whoever is speaking and whatever topic is shared. And, you know, hopefully it is topics that group can really get some deep connecting with each other, even if in that circle they don't say anything, but later on they want to connect privately, and it just opens that door for those relationships to start.
Yeah, and I think it's a really great counterbalance, right? Because most women are coming with somebody that they know, or they know of somebody that's going to be there. Maybe they don't have like a really deep relationship with that person, but they like, yeah, I know them. I know them from here and there. So we wanted to do the circles to give that space for new relationships to blossom, right? Because it's easy especially when you're coming with friends, to just stay in your comfort zone, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And part of pollinating is getting out of your comfort zone a little bit. And so I think that'll be a great counterbalance to the comfort and stability of the friend group that you might be coming with, is just being able to branch out. And like you said, even within the tightest circles of women, there's oftentimes things that people don't feel comfortable talking about with, and but if they're in a group of people that don't have any investment in that, it can really open the door to some wonderful maybe word I'm looking for is for an opportunity to become unhidden, I guess is what I'm thinking. And I'm writing a lot about, we were talking about writing earlier. I'm writing a lot about the process of unhiding oneself, so I think this will be a really great opportunity to do that.
And that's something else, like I haven't written in a long time. And so I'm thinking, okay, I kind of want to go take my journal and just go off somewhere and force myself to write. And because I know that I don't do that when I'm home. There's a million other things that I do, and I feel like this is giving me permission to grab that journal and just go and get some thoughts on paper that have just been whirling around in my head and I haven't done anything with. So when you mentioned that you've been writing, not about Pollinate, but tell us a little bit about some of the topics that you write about, that you're passionate about, and a little bit more about Medium, where people can read your writing.
Sure, yeah. So I have always been a writer, and when I was younger, in my 20s, I did give some serious consideration and thought to doing that as a profession. But writing for me and for most writers is a very isolating experience, right? So when I'm writing, I really don't want to be bothered by anything else, literally. Like even going to the bathroom sometimes is like, oh my God, my body's got to go to the bathroom. Because when you're in, when you're in the flow, it's magical, right? Yes. And when I was younger, I had a moment where I realized that I might not have a relationship. I might not have a pet. I might not have a whole lot of anything except for writing if I chose that path. And so I chose not to do it for that reason, because I do like to be with people and connect. But a couple years ago, I went through a transition. I transitioned with my husband out of our previous relationship and into our current relationship. He's also the father of my boys. And that necessitated some pretty deep processing for me. And the writing came back almost like without permission, right? Which was really beautiful. And I was in a place in my life that I wasn't scared of that anymore. I wasn't scared of, I have a very big life. I built the big life with all the things in it. So it seemed like it was the writing's time, and so I started writing, and I just kind of started writing as a lot of people do, and putting things on Facebook or Instagram, kind of short little snippy pieces. And my dear friend Lisa Rossi, who is has been a journalist and worked a lot with writers over her career, encouraged me to publish my writing and to go deeper with it and do more long form stuff. And after some cajoling, she mentioned to me this platform called Medium.com, which is a platform for writers to publish their work and for people who love to read, to read on all different topics. And so I joined it last year, but I was on it for a good solid 6 months, just reading different writers, all different types of writers. I think that's really important to be a good writer, is to read other people's work a lot. And I do read a lot. Like I mean, that's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I grab my phone and I read an article, and I have kind of a list of things that I will go through to check out before I even check my email or my social media or whatever. I like to read. And then this summer I decided to publish my first piece. It was super scary. It's really, really scary, because writing is a vulnerable place for writers.
Right.
You know, I mean, good writing is vulnerable. So I put the first piece out. It was called "Letting Go Takes Commitment Too," and it was about my marriage and my decision and my husband's decision to transition our relationship. And a lot of my writing has been about that, because I feel like our story is so different than most people's stories. Mm-hmm. And I feel compelled to provide a new model and a new story, a new narrative around marriage and around commitment and around, the idea of eternal love, right? Mm-hmm. And it was helping me to process and to build value around my experience and continue to build a beautiful relationship with this person in my life who I had children with and still love very much. So, that's kind of where it all started. And I primarily write a lot about I write a lot about relationships. I write a lot about my own experience. Like I've been writing a lot about my dating experience.
Are those the comedic pieces? No.
Yes, they are. They are the comedic pieces. And I think, writing with humor and wit is sometimes even harder than writing a serious piece. Mm-hmm. And so, I am working on a couple pieces that are coming off of that and going into a little bit more of a cultural commentary. I'm also working on some pieces about my experience as a business owner and an entrepreneur and a woman in those fields. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping to, kind of do more of that writing, but there's still a lot of juice in the relationship for me.
And you've gotten a lot of followers who are understanding where you're coming from, who are reaching out to you and saying, hey, thank you for writing this.
Yeah, I mean, like
this is what was happening to me, or this was on my mind.
I never anticipated the feedback that I would get, and I never anticipated the gratitude that I would feel, the purpose that would come out of the work from this feedback. I typically have at least one or two people that contact me privately for every article that I post with their stories, or telling me that this article opened up a conversation in their relationship for them, or this led to a significant shift in their thinking. I can't think of anything really more gratifying in my life right now. And I have a lot of things that feed my soul than that. It just feels like my divine purpose in so many ways. And I've met so many people and connected with so many people through the work. I've been opened in ways that I never thought I would be opened. My mind has been opened. But one of the things I think that is the most profound thing that I've gotten, the most profound understanding that I've gotten from people is how much of our lives we are living in the dark. People are living in shame, and they're living in hidden spaces and hidden realms. Mm-hmm. From the ones that they love the most, their children, their spouses, their parents, and when I put out my pieces, especially the ones that are like very vulnerable, and when I disclose things that maybe you'd think like your best friend would disclose
Right.
after a long night of drinking.
That's when people respond the most.
Yes, that's when they respond the most. And I'm kind of always in shock at like the level of that pain that's going on. And I really, when I think about, legacy, or I think about what I want to leave on the planet, if it's helping people to be more authentic and live a life out of the shadows, that's it. That's the thing. I'll go to my grave like really happy with that. If that's what happens. It feels like that's what's happening, but yeah. So I mean, I'll be honest, and I've told people this, like if I think anyway, I say this, but you know me, if I could be writing and just doing writing, like 100% of the time, that's where I would probably be doing it, probably. Yeah. Until I need to knit again or plan a retreat right. or open a new business. Or
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you, even with Pollinate, when you think about what you're putting out there, it's very similar. I mean, you're giving, just like in writing, giving people permission to open up, to have experiences, to share experiences with others, just like people can share their experiences with you after reading your writing and kind of feeling like, oh, I'm not alone in this thinking, or I'm not alone in this situation. There's someone else out there who has gone through this or understands if I open up about this. So I think that that's just kind of where you have placed yourself with Pollinate, with writing. So I imagine that that's kind of the path that you'll continue to go with whatever the next project is.
Yeah, with the transition that I had a couple of years ago, I also had a really big kind of professional come to Jesus. And I still love the work I do at Midwest Ticks and Swelu. But I don't know, like, I think as you get older, Christina, like you kind of come to terms with your mortality. I just came to terms with the fact that I really needed to strive for every minute of my life to be meaningful and purposeful, right? Like, I really started looking at everything that I was doing and asking myself, like, is this really moving the needle for me or anybody else, for the world, for me? I found an old journal. I found my first journal from when I was a kid during this period of time. I was 12 when I wrote in it. And the very first page of the journal said, I was talking in the journal about how my biggest fear was that I was going to die and I wasn't going to have changed the world. This is what I was writing when I was 12, right? And it was a divine moment to find that journal at that time in my life and to be reminded of what I'd always wanted to be ever since I was a child, or how I wanted to live in the world, And when you find something like that from your 12-year-old self, and then, you're 46 and you're 45, 46, it makes an impact. Yeah. And I was like, I just do want to do that. This is who I've always wanted to be. And everything that I do from here forward has to be living up to that 12-year-old girl. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, she deserves to have her dream. And once I just let that absorb in and I surrounded myself with it, it's like all of the pieces started coming into play. Like, everything that I've ever dreamed of doing professionally is happening, really. Like, and it feels like so free. It's like the most free part of my life. There's like not a whole lot of constriction. Even the challenges are fun. Yeah. And although I do get myself like right now, I have a lot of things going on. So sometimes I do have to I can short circuit myself. And I have to remind myself like, yeah, you need that quiet time too, girl. You need that,
Yeah.
no,
Exactly.
like yesterday I have a ton of stuff to do, but I basically spent most of the day in bed, like sleeping and not doing anything. Right. I did end up writing later on in the day. Because when that stuff comes, you just have to like
do
it. You have to do it. So, but yeah, I mean, it's like, I can honestly say like, this is probably the best time of my life. Mm-hmm. It is really the best time of my life. I'm trying to think of, this is probably it.
Well, that's exciting for me because when I was growing up, I thought my 20s were going to be the most exciting time of my life. And as I was living through my 20s, there were some great moments.
Right.
But I was like, there's got to be more than this.
I thought the same thing.
And I was like, what was I so excited about?
Yeah.
And then as they were behind me, I was like, oh, yeah, they weren't that great. I mean, they were okay. But I think I'm like, there's got to be better moving forward. And I wanted to be better moving forward. And there were more things that I challenged myself to do and the type of person that I wanted to be. So I can see where, with time, like fine wine, we are going to get better. Our lives are going to get better because we're going to start accepting better.
Yes.
There's what is it that they say? Like a woman after her 30s has very little time for bullshit or something.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'm really, and I'm talking a lot about this in my writing, it keeps coming up in almost, I feel like almost every article I write has some component of this, but I have really come to appreciate the beauty of my pain. Mm-hmm. Both my pain of childhood, but I've had some pretty extreme death experiences. My divorce was no fun. And I think that we're constantly trying to suppress those things, that like pain isn't given its proper honoring for the beauty and the gifts that it really brings, even though it's incredibly difficult and hard. And I feel like I have really seen that in a way that I never saw it before. And I am incredibly grateful for those things in my life, because I think that they've given me a confidence and a peace that I wouldn't have had without them. Right. They've really made me who I am, and it makes me not scared of pain in the future because I know there will be more pain.
Right.
Right. And I am, a lot of my writing right now is encouraging people to embrace pain, to, I just recently wrote a piece about my divorce as it affected my children, my boys. And one of the things that I talk about in that piece was the revelation of like, I'm not going to save my children from pain. Actually, I'm going to be the first one to cause them pain. And that's my job. And it's my job to show them how to initiate pain in the least destructive way, and to also deal with pain in the most healthy way that you can. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been the biggest challenge, and for both my husband and I, and our biggest opportunity with our children has been to show them what it means to move through a painful experience, right. Yeah. And so yeah, I feel like that's something that's really come with my 40s. I'm also loving hanging out with older women. Like I have spent some good quality time recently with some women in their 80s. And it brings me a lot of peace to be with them and see them, because our culture is so wrapped up in like youth and staying young, mm-hmm. and looking young and all the young. and being with these women and seeing their vitality, and it's a vitality like I can't wait to have. I hope I make it that long, right? Because it can't come with anything other than the wrinkles and the age and the experiences and the knowing that the end is near, right? And it's been really beautiful. And I find myself craving craving more time with what we call in some spiritual circles as crone women, the crones. So that's been a really good experience too. And I'm writing a little bit about that too. Just being with the older women.
This past week, I had the honor of meeting Dolores Huerta, and she's 86 years old. And a week and a half ago, she was arrested for peaceful protesting. And I remember when I saw the article, and I knew she was coming to Des Moines, and I was super excited to go see her. And I thought to myself, oh crap, does that mean she's not going to be able to come because she's going to be in jail? But she came and she talked about it. And I thought, I never want to get to the age where I just don't give a shit about what's going on around me. Like she doesn't give enough, she doesn't give enough fucks to be, to like, but certain, like you can tell that she's just like, so I'm going to get arrested with these people again. So what? Who cares? And yeah, I'm gonna, I have these speaking gigs, and I'm sure she was paid for, for her time here. But she was like, well, but this is important to me, and I'm gonna be here with these people in solidarity. And if they're all going to jail, then hey, handcuff me too. And she even said that the cop didn't want to arrest her, and he probably was like, oh, this poor old lady at 86. And she was like, no, if everybody's going in, I'm going in too.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me be like that. Let me have, kind of that spark, that just have, still have that clear purpose in my 80s and beyond that.
I feel that way about the activism too. And I also feel that way when I hear women in their 80s talking about still having sex and being sexually active, right? Because as a woman, especially, confronting menopause or the change or whatever, I often wonder, what does that life look like? And it looks the same. I mean, I had recently was speaking with a woman in her early 70s that told me she's having the best sex of her life, right? Like the best sex of her life. And, I think that, especially with love and dating and relationships and everything, that's also wrapped up in youth, right? And it's like, oh, as a woman, especially after 50, who's going to want you? You're old and blah, 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 So seeing this vitality, seeing, Dolores's vitality or a couple of these women that I've had conversations with about their sexuality, it's life affirming, it's really creating and understanding a new narrative than what you're always told, right? Or what culture tells you about what life is or what love is, and there's so much diversity of experience. I think this is one of the great things about I don't think there's a lot of great things about the digital revolution. I have a really love-hate relationship with it, but I do think the fact that more people's stories are coming out and storytelling is getting a trendy resurgence right now.
Right.
I mean, I think these are really important because I think that the brain needs to understand that, we have, there's multiple different stories, there's multiple different results that can come from an experience. It's not always what we're just spoon-fed and told through mass media and our institutions and our traditions and whatever. And for me, aging is I'm looking for those different stories because I want to move into the last half of my life with that type of vitality, and never relinquishing it until I am not breathing. Right.
Yeah. No, that's, And it's something to look forward to
Yeah.
think about. Yeah, I'm going to get older, and, things that I might think are great now are going to be even better. And I don't have to feel like they're all going to go away. Because I think that's, for a long time when I thought about getting older, heck, even thinking about turning 40, I was like, oh, life is going to be so boring in my 40s.
I know.
What's it going to be like? And now that I'm, up close and personal right there at the door of my 40th birthday, I'm excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a woman in her 40s. And that sounds to me like such a powerful thing. So much experience that I'm going to move into that sphere of life with. And then, just every decade after that, I'm like, oh man, that's going to be another kick-ass decade. A woman in her 50s, a woman in her 60s.
I agree. This has been my favorite decade. It's been a huge, everybody calls it a midlife crisis. And this is another theme that I address in my writing. And I don't consider it a crisis. I believe that it is a natural course of a human life to come to the middle of your life and to evaluate it and to question, to make change if change is required. And I really don't know anybody who's living a vital whole life that isn't making changes on a regular basis. But certainly, after you've put in 20 years of adult living,
right,
right, from like 20 to 40 or whatever, 40, that's something that should be happening. And I really want our culture to create, first of all, a normalcy around this, and I'd like to create ritual around it. I'd like to create supportive models and structures around it instead of it being a crisis that's shameful and that we need to hide and that all of the things, because basically it's because of that attitude around this very natural part of life that shit gets all blown up, right? Because people can't experience what is a very natural thing in a natural way. It's not seen as natural. It's seen as a mental health crisis in your life.
And it's shameful, and it's something you don't want to talk about, or the other extreme, that it's something comedic that, like, oh, it's just a midlife crisis and we can it'll go away. It's like a stage that kids go through, and you just let them cry it out and then they'll be fine, kind of thing. So we don't have to address it. When it's so much more complicated.
It's a
than
passage.
That. There's so much that's going on.
It's
right.
really,
and it should be addressed.
It's really, really a beautiful passage. Just like, when people pass in late teen years and into adult years, we have a graduation around that. We have, a lot of times people get married or they whatever, but it's seen as a passage, and it's supported in our culture as a passage.
Right.
Same thing when kids go from being preteen into teenage years. There's bar mitzvah and there's vision quest, and there's been ritual built around this this passage, this transition of your maturity. But boy, when you get to the 40s, like when you start feeling that passage again, you're just told that you're crazy. I mean, that's really what happens. You're crazy, you're out of control, all of those type of things. So, I think, again, creating new narrative, creating new story around that is really, really, really important. It's a major mission of mine right now.
And that was one of the things that, going back to the Pollinate weekend, that I really liked from the very first meeting, was that you were very deliberate about saying, this is a weekend for all ages, and we have cabins that are, are accessible for older women who, don't want to walk so far to whatever, or, but that was from the very beginning part of the vision, that this weekend would be for women of all ages. And, that is exciting, because we tend to just kind of stay in our circles. I mean, you've been spending time with women who are older, but in my life, outside of like my mom or my tias, it's the people you work with, and then the people, maybe you're friends with your with the moms of your kids, and so they're about your age, so you kind of get in this bubble of women all the same age, and you kind of miss out on that, the wisdom, or the encouragement, or just when I see a woman who's like gone through something, like when I would go to widow support circles, what I would see in front of me were women who had been through this horrific feeling that I was going through, and they were on another side of it.
Yeah.
They were able to talk about it in a way that at that time I wasn't able to do. They were able to talk about things that I could not imagine doing again in my life. They were talking about traveling internationally solo and running 5Ks. And these were women who had had 40 years of marriage before widowhood set in. And, you know, and I just admired that they had been where I was, and they were still thriving. They were still moving forward, and they were letting me know that it was going to be okay. And I think we need that as women, from women who have been where we've been, you know, with your writing on relationships, women who, okay, so it's isolating to be a single mom. It's isolating to be a solo mom. You know, so to see, okay, these are the struggles that other women are going through, and then to have a time to come together and just listen to their stories and just see them on another side of that, surviving and thriving and nurturing others and doing for themselves. Like, to me, that is all inspirational. That lights my soul on fire, because I'm like, yeah, I can be that woman one day who is in her 70s and having the best sex of her life, or who's in her, 80s and getting arrested for social justice issues. That could be me one day.
Yeah, that is going to be you, right? That's going to be both of us. Yeah, and I think that, that goes to the larger point that, we all need to address about the world, and especially I think in America that we're living, is that we have created an isolated society. We're isolated from our communities. We're isolated in our generations. Our families are isolated. Our relationships are isolated. Our marriages are isolated. I mean, we are just breaking under the weight of this isolation, because the reality is that human beings are not built for that. We're built to live in community with each other. We're built to live in family units. This is how our brains are constructed. Our evolution has built us, and I think that we need to have some serious dialogue with each other, and maybe with our larger systems about this issue. Right. Because what's happened is it's even fractured us from our environment, right? Like this has been a big fracturing. And so, I think anytime you can access a space, an event, a community, an apartment complex, whatever, that allows you to connect with people that are not like you, right? Mm-hmm. Whether they're older or they're abled or disabled, or they're different colors, or they're different genders, or they're different sexualities, or whatever. Right. Whenever you are able to reach out into that space, that is where, like, human beings thrive.
Yeah, and that's where you grow. That's where you learn so much about just humanity and your role in it. That's something that, like, I look at my 15-year-old and I see her, like, really kind of struggle to figure out who she is, who she wants to be, who she should be. And I just, like, want to shake her and tell her it is not that complicated. Like, just put yourself outside of your comfort zone a couple times and watch the growth happen. But of course, 15, who wants to do that? That's like the scariest thing. But, then I think, okay, well, then it's my job to create opportunities and examples for her to see of people who go outside their comfort zone, of people who take risks and go out there and learn from other people who are different than themselves, and try things that they would never have imagined trying, and talking to people that they wouldn't typically talk about, because otherwise you just, like you said, you live in this bubble that's only you and those like you, and it can get isolating, because after a while it's just kind of the same thing. It's like you're cog in a, you're just kind of spinning.
And the other thing is, like, the narrative is that self-sufficiency and individualism and on all these things, especially in America, is the ideal, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this is the penultimate life, is to have your own home, to have your nuclear family, It's very isolated. I mean, when you look at it from an objective standpoint, it's a really isolated way of living, right? Even if you just think about like, I have a piece of land, it has a house on it, I have a family, and this is it's like my wife and my kids, and basically then they leave and it's just my wife and me, and there's no multi-generational anything. And we're really, if you look at other parts of the world, we are unique in this way, and some, that this isolated, kind of nuclear family unit stuff, what I mean? And it's not working. It's just not working. I mean, people are not living happy lives. Yeah. They're not living healthy lives. And I mean, I'm working on a piece right now where I was doing a little research about men. And the suicide rates for men in this country have skyrocketed over the last 10 years. Absolutely skyrocketed. Why? Because they're alone. Mm-hmm. Because that's what they've been told is the way to be, is alone.
Alone and stoic. Not
alone
showing
and
emotion.
Yeah, suppressed, alone.
Emotion.
Yes. And it's just like, again, we need to acknowledge that this is not working. Mm-hmm. Whatever our cultural values that we have been living under are not supporting healthy marriages. They're not supporting healthy people. They're not supporting loving environments and communities. They're supporting suicide and violence and poverty. And we need a real change. And like we were talking a little bit about the candidates earlier. My God, I'm waiting for Gandhi to show up, or Martin Luther King, or Jesus, or somebody, Mother Teresa. I'd like somebody to start, on this level, to start speaking to our souls, right? Like all the things that we're trying to fix. Ultimately, for me, like somebody asked me what I was doing with politics, because I've always been very engaged in politics in the past, right? I've been on campaigns, I caucus, I've done all the things, and I was a politics major too. But they asked me what I was, and I said I'm not doing anything with politics right now, and they're like, well, why not? And I said, ultimately for me at the moment. You can have the most perfect system in the world, but if there's a bunch of broken people in it, it's not going to work. Right. So all the solutions we're talking about, all these things that we're talking about, these kind of are, for me at the moment, they're Band-Aids on top of a huge spiritual wound. Yeah. And it's a cultural wound. It's a culture that is invested in the wrong things, on all levels. I mean, I run a business. Business in America is about making money. And I find myself, feeling like the black swan in that regard as well, because like, that's not why I run my business, and my competitors around me are about money. They're about money. They're about money. They're about money. And I'm more about purpose, even with like the very commerce-based business I have with ticketing. I was talking to a colleague a couple weeks ago about, get back to humanity, get back to human beings helping human beings. I know technology is all great and everything, but it's not about the next app you're going to put on this thing. It's about, I need a human being. You need a human being. People need human beings right now. And human beings need to know that they're valued the 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day that they're doing their work, right? It's got to mean something.
And, it's funny because listening to, everything that we've talked about, like more and more, I can see how you had this vision of Pollinate, of women coming together and nurturing each other and supporting each other, and then going out into the world and then, doing that for each other and others on a personal level and smaller scale, because everything that we're talking about really is about humans connecting. And for me, I feel like one of the things that I have always seen in my life personally is that if you want to see something get done, rely on a woman to do it. Like I have very strong women in my family
Yes.
and women I grew up with. They're the ones that I remember getting stuff done. I mean, no disrespect to my dad and other men in my life, but for the most part, even here, if you look around at a lot of our nonprofits that are getting stuff done here in Des Moines, they're run by women. It's women out there, making changes happen. And it just makes it all that more affirming to me why a weekend to connect with each other and connect with yourself and give yourself a space and a time to just kind of heal the wound and allow for that pain to go through you, whatever that you need to do, so then you can keep going out there and getting work done and being everything that you are to everyone is so important as a woman.
Yeah, and I named the weekend is named after the business, which is Pollinate Wellness, which is the new step I took into my professional world after I went through this ongoing kind of emergence of my 40s. And the reason I named it Pollinate was because this connection point that you talk about, I really started connecting with that through my time in nature, right? Because you see, when you're in nature, you see how the natural world is in constant connection, right? All working together in this kind of harmonious and dramatic fashion, right? There's violence in nature. There's change in nature. There's all these things, but they are working in concert with each other, right? And in purpose of something, which is life. And I thought to myself, I started thinking about like, what is it? What in nature am I finding here that is so soothing? And that was it, was like, it is ground zero for communion amongst living things. And the seed of Pollinate, right? The seed of the dandelion, which the dandelion is so ubiquitous, especially in our region, that we even forget that it's there and how powerful it is.
Right.
But, these seeds, like the blow in the wind, they work in concert with the wind and they carry forth their energy, their life energy, without fear, without agenda, without return on investment. They blow in the wind and they land where they land. And when they land there, they make another one. Right. They continue perpetuating life. It's the most beautiful, just even sit around and think about it for a while. Like even taking, a couple minutes of your day to just think about a seed blowing in the wind and then landing and making something new, right? Without fear or agenda. Is like the most empowering thing ever, right? So, and I'm like, this is the model. Like, this is the model for like my life moving forward, and what I want other people to experience when they touch my life. Like, if I can, be a seed that goes on as fruit, right? Then the fruit goes on as food, right? And then food goes on as life. And it's that whole balance, that whole beautiful balance. And that's another thing that's going to be amazing about Pollinate, is that space is just it's going to be, I've been there so many times, and it is like being like hugged by nature. It's in a river valley, it's right on the river. It really is like you're going to get the opportunity to just let nature kind of take care of it for 3 days. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, well, I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I'm so glad that we were able to have this conversation. I was excited about it before, and I was proud to be a part of it, but now, just even having, I feel more connected to the project, to the event. So thank you for coming and sharing about your writing and just seeing it all, full circle. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you for participating and bringing the amazing contributions you brought to the table, which is, for me, I think it's absolutely incredible that you actually went out and asked people to support women in this event. by paying for their registration. You know, these women that are working so hard in these nonprofit organizations and are giving back to the community, you're asking the community to take care of them. And some people said yes, which is really exciting, right?
Yeah.
Not only because those women are going to be able to attend, but also just because like people said yes to that, to taking care of each other. So thank you for the great idea. Thank you for executing on it. And thank you for all your beautiful spirit and energy. And I'm looking so much forward to being in the woods with you. Although you'll probably be like, I'm going to go by myself, Kathryn. I don't want anybody with me.
I'll be hiding in like the far off hammock over there somewhere. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in and being part of tonight's discussion. Again, if you are interested in Pollinate, you can go to pollinatewomensweekend.com. You can register. You can read more about all of the practitioners. The schedules are on there so you can see exactly what's going on. Invite your friends, tell your moms, your aunts, your tias, your cousins, your primas, everybody, so we can have a
get those crones out. Let's get some older women there too. Yeah.
So, Mom, if you're listening, you should come on out and have fun with us October 10th through the 13th. Thank you again, Kathryn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.